The lab component of this online class can be kind of confusing, but I am so excited about all the different options that you have. And as you know, you only have to complete 4 lab exercises. I can't emphasize that enough because sometimes students look at this lab document and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to do all that. No, you need to do 4. In fact, you know that actually labs come in 2 flavors. There are scheduled labs and at-large labs. So scheduled labs, you simply need to be somewhere, some location, a particular location at a particular time, scheduled labs, and then at-large labs you do on your own. Sometimes at-large labs there are some kind of restrictions on where you need to go and when you need to go, but they're things that you do on your own. So each lab has kind of a different, a slightly different perhaps, report format. I would encourage you to pay close attention to the report format for the labs that you choose to do. If you want me to take a look at your lab report before you officially hand it in, I would be glad to do that and kind of let you know if that looks like full credit or not. But all of your lab reports need to be typed, double spaced, and actually you're going to need to have some sort of photo element to your report. If you have questions about your lab write-up after you've done a lab, how do you pull it together, feel free to ask me. But you're going to want to make sure that you capture the moment some way photographically. Your lab reports are going to be due, you need to complete 4 astronomy labs, and it's broken up by 2 of the labs need to be turned in by October 18th, and the other 2 labs no later than November 20th. So after that date, like I say here, or I guess it's somewhere else, yeah, here it is, you will lose 5% each business day the labs are late. So feel free to turn labs in early. Like I say in this document, one of the things you're going to do is get your labs in early because here in southeast Iowa it tends to get cold on about November, so sometimes October. So get your labs in early. In case I forget to mention it, all labs, whether they're scheduled labs or at-large labs, I would totally encourage you to bring your friends, your neighbors, your dogs. It's definitely one of my things I want to do with these labs is to get you out enjoying the nighttime skies. So let's take a look at the scheduled labs. The scheduled labs, there actually are 5 that I host. The first 5 are ones that I host. These I do, and these other people do. So actually on the document coming up, I have these kind of turned around. I'll show you what I mean. So for instance, I have the morning lab as 1, okay, the private viewing is 2, Keokuk that I host, Sun Lab at Keokuk. So now remember, as we go through these, if you're like, oh, I don't want to drive to Keokuk, well, you don't have to drive to Keokuk, okay? It's just an option. So let's take a look at each one of them. But for all of these, let's see, I think that's how I did it. Nope. At the end of this, I kind of tell you what your lab report should look like. Now, for the 5 that I host, actually, you're going to see on the next page, or you've already seen on the next page, that actually there are 2 dates. There's a primary date and a secondary date. So the primary date is the one that I'm hoping will go. One thing about it is, in order for us to observe things, it needs to be not cloudy, let alone not rainy, right? It needs to be clear. So, for instance, then, if it is cloudy for the primary date, then what we're going to do is it's going to automatically go shoot for the secondary date. Now, if it's cloudy on the primary date, like how will I know? Well, actually, I will make the judgment at least 2 hours before the lab, and I will send out an email, and I will also change my outgoing voicemail message. And so there's my phone number with my extension. If you're curious as a lab is going to be canceled or is a go, that's what you need to call. Okay, now let's just say that the primary lab was canceled, and let's say it came time for the secondary date and it's also cloudy. Well, we're going to have to go regardless. Okay, secondary dates will plan to meet at the point in time and place regardless of cloud cover. If it's rainy, that sort of thing, or I might secure I might secure something inside at the Keokuk campus, okay, or at the Whitty Observatory. I'll show you how that works. So here we go. Again, you don't have to come, don't have to come, don't have to come, but these first two are actually at the Whitty Observatory complex. If you're not familiar where that is, if you're familiar with Burlington, you take Highway 61 north from Burlington, and there's, before you get to Mediapolis, there's a little town called Sperry on your east side or on your right side. You're going to turn kind of left right after that, and you would, to get to the Whitty Observatory complex, you need to follow signs for, let's see, Big Hollow Recreation Area. Big Hollow Rec Area. And they are like brown signs, okay, that sort of thing. So you're going to turn west from off of Highway 61 shortly after Sperry, and then there'll be another sign down the road to turn. I guess it would be south. You're going to take another right to get to the observatory. So I would really encourage you. Actually, at the bottom here are other ongoing opportunities. These are ones that I host, but actually the observatory is open twice a month. So for public viewing, and you can go there to get lab credit. So here we go. On Tuesday, October 27th, if skies are clear, at 5:30 in the morning, I will host a lab. Now, labs take maybe half an hour or so. So here's the deal. Just with this one, only if I get commitment from 2 students will I, with pleasure, go set up to view some things in the morning sky for this morning lab at the Whitty Observatory. So I'm excited. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a wonderful observatory. Now, if that one's clouded out, then we go to November 3rd. You kind of get that idea. Also at the Whitty Observatory, we're going to go ahead, my husband and I are going to try to shoot for October 13th, and hopefully the skies will be clear, and we'll open up the observatory at 6:30, and that's a go regardless. We'll enjoy. We hope we have a crowd, but it's fun just being out there. The next 3 actually are at the Keokuk campus, and if you're wondering why the Keokuk campus, well, actually I have some face-to-face students taking this class too, and they are from Keokuk. So they are all on Thursdays. So the first one is actually, I chose these dates so that for the constellations viewing, I chose it so the moon would not interfere. Okay, and so September 10th is our primary date, October 8th our secondary date. The moon viewing lab, I chose, it's a little bit past quarter, pushing almost a full moon. Actually, it's coming up, and I have a big correction. So I messed up. Actually, it is on a Thursday, but instead of August 28th, which is not a Thursday, it is August 27th. And as I'm preparing that, that's this Thursday. Okay, so this Thursday, hopefully skies will be clear. I hope they're clear. If they're not clear, what I'm going to do is send everybody an email message at least 2 hours before 9:30 p.m. And also I'm going to change my outgoing message so that we know, so that y'all know that that lab has been canceled, and we'll shoot for September 24th. One of the things we're gonna definitely talk about in here is our sun, and so on the late morning of October 29th, Thursday, at 11:30 again at the Keokuk campus, you've got an opportunity to safely look at the sun. So then a couple of things that I don't host. I mentioned the Whitty Observatory complex is open twice a month. It actually is the first and third Friday of every month. And now that is if it's clear. They'll be open for public viewing. The time for public viewing is about when it gets dark for a couple of hours. But when it gets dark early, the earliest we probably open is 7 or 7:30, kind of in the fall to winter months. In the winter, actually, this won't affect you for the class, but we do go ahead and close it up anymore in the month of January and February for sure, just for weather. So the last one is another observatory complex, and I've been here once. It was wonderful. Actually, it'd be a little bit of a road trip. It is the Palisades Dows Observatory, and it's run by the Cedar Rapids Astronomy Club, and it's an awesome observatory. Notice that what they have is, regardless of sky cover, they do have some ongoing lecturers, which are just outstanding. So go enjoy the lecturers, enjoy their telescopes, enjoy looking through things through objects with their telescopes, and write it up for lab credit. Remember, you can take somebody. So for all of these scheduled labs, here's what you need. You need written in paragraph form, typed, double spaced, somehow work in these items. The purpose, the date, the description of things that you that were at, or things that were used during your observing. Astronomical observations, just what you saw. Okay, then this one right here, describe in scientific terms a bit about the objects observed. Let me know if you have questions. But for instance, if you see a cluster, if somebody shows you a star cluster, and you need to jot that down, and then you need to say something a little bit scientific about a star cluster. We'll talk about star clusters. Was it an open cluster, a globular cluster? Were they, globular clusters are old stars, open clusters are relatively new stars, just something about that. And of course a photo. So that is all the scheduled lab. On to the at-large lab activities, and they fall under these categories. You can do a constellation, you can look at a sky map and in the nighttime sky and find some stars. You can, number two, enjoy a meteor shower. Those are kind of hard to catch, and but if you observe one, and I think it's 5 meteors you have to see, then you can write it up for lab. You can visit a planetarium, such as the one at St. Louis or Chicago, or there's one in Des Moines. You can, number 4 there is you can view the moon either using binoculars or a small telescope of your own. Now these cannot be done in conjunction, at-large labs cannot be done in conjunction with scheduled labs. Okay, so if you're out at the moon lab in Keokuk, looking through the telescope at the beautiful moon, you can't use that as your at-large lab. The 5th one there is, again, requires something. The 5th lab, and I don't think Pell Grants will buy you a telescope, but the 5th one up there is to use a telescope to look at the planets. And then the 6th one there, and I'll kind of just gloss over these here momentarily. The 6th one is to watch the moon for 2 weeks and record what you see. So the Constellation Lab, Sky Map Constellation Lab, excuse me. There's another Constellation Lab that's a scheduled lab, but the Sky Map is basically you need to have a printed out copy of a sky map. And I've, under doc sharing, begun putting under the lab folder these My Favorite Sky Map, so feel free to print that out. You're going to want, and that, by the way, I got that from skymaps.com. Then you need a nice, clear, dark night, okay? And what you're going to do is hold the sky map probably overhead and match up what you see in the sky with the dots on the sky map that represent stars, okay? So you're going to find your way around constellations, hopefully a little bit. Okay, I guess that's it. So down here, to get lab credit, then you need to have it typewritten report, double spaced, and include these elements. Let's see, I guess that's it. Don't forget to include a photo of you, a selfie, right, of you doing this activity. The second one, meteor showers. Like I said, meteor showers are an outstanding, wonderful event to happen, to observe, to participate in. You may have caught the Perseid meteor shower this August. Fall 2015 was outstanding. I've written the peak dates for some meteor showers, and we'll talk more about meteor showers, but you probably recognize the constellation Orion in Orionids, okay? The Taurus the bull and Taurids, Leo the lion and Leonids, the twins, Gemini, and Geminids. So you can kind of see when those peaks are. So like I said, you're going to need to catch or observe at least 5 meteors. And this paragraph kind of, or this write-up kind of warns you that meteors are not all created equal. They tend to sometimes have color, and they have different kind of hang times, that sort of thing. So there you go. So there's your what you need to include for your meteor shower lab report. The third one, kind of self-explanatory, visit a planetarium and write it up for lab credit. Okay, there is one in Des Moines. I know planetariums, oftentimes students at the end, if they're at the end of the semester and they need that one more lab, they'll say, okay, family, road trip. Okay, the train to Chicago is a great thing. So you can kind of see what you need to write up in order to earn lab credit for your planetarium visit. The moon viewing lab can all be done in one evening from the comfort of your home. Oftentimes this in the sky, the Sky Map Constellations lab are labs that I'll direct students to if you're just trying to make sure you satisfy the lab requirement. So here I want you need to have binoculars or a telescope of your own, or borrow telescope, but it can't be, like I said, in conjunction with a scheduled lab. And you're going to, here's what you need to write up to get full credit. Okay, a few extra things. If you have any questions about these elements, feel free to ask. Then on to viewing planets, kind of self-explanatory. Like the moon lab, you need to look at planets, but in this case, binoculars won't do it. And so that's kind of that. Don't forget to take your selfie in order to get full lab credit. The moon journal. So now the moon journal, I want you to go out and observe the moon over the course of 2 weeks. But I've kind of narrowed it down. I want you to, and I'll kind of be posting when these are. Let's see if I can grab a calendar right quick. I want you to start your 2-week observation when the moon is in its first quarter phase. So one of the things that we know, and we'll be talking more about, is that the between the first quarter, okay, and then it'll go full, and then it'll go second quarter or last quarter, then it will go new, okay, and then it will be back to, guess what, first quarter again after that. So those are the 4 main phases of the moon, and it takes about a week for to go to each phase. So honestly, what I'm looking for, what I'll be looking for in your journals, is you're going to basically go from first quarter to full, and from full to second quarter. That will be 2 weeks. So I kind of gave you some hints here, because one of the things that can potentially get confusing is where is the moon? And as it turns out, actually, a first quarter moon is one that that rises at noon and sets at midnight, about. Okay, a full moon rises at 6 p.m., sets at 6 a.m. And the last quarter moon, when you get near the end of your journal, second part of your journal, is actually the last quarter moon is going to rise pretty darn late. So I don't know if you're night owls or not, but it's going to rise at midnight, but it's going to set at noon. So, hey, that means if you're up and about, like even at 7 a.m., okay, look for the moon in the daytime. That's kind of one of the things that I think is interesting. One of the many things that I find kind of reassuring or fun about astronomy. So you can kind of see, let me see, what you need to do to get full lab credit for this. Okay, and yeah, I guess that's it. Oh, yep, I did have, don't forget that for each of your 14 observations, because it's 2 weeks, provide a little sketch of the portion of the moon that was illuminated. So I wanted to kind of see the phase change as the moon, from day to day. I guess that's it. There will actually be one more lab opportunity, and it is the lunar eclipse. It will be, what do we say? It will be something you do on your own. And I believe it's September 27th, but I will kind of be giving you updates about that. I'm really excited about the lunar eclipse, though, okay? So don't let me forget. You can watch that on your own. If you haven't seen one before, you ought to see one. And I think this is like an early one, like 9:30 at night. So I think it'll be pretty exciting. So the theme of the course is, if you have any questions, let me know. But I hope you enjoy the lab component of this class.